You're watching the Super Chevy Dealer Saints Game Plan.
Welcome back, everybody, to Saints Game Plan as we get you all set for the Saints and the Houston Texans coming up this Sunday. This, of course, is the media matchup portion of the program where we get the out-of-town take on the upcoming opponent. And joining us to do that is Matt Thomas from Fox Sports Radio in Houston, Sports Radio 790. And Matt, welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
Fred, it's my pleasure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your football team. 2-0, leading the AFC South. Give us a feel of the culture that Gary Kubiak is establishing down there.
Well, it's not so much the culture of what Gary Kubiak has done, it's what the organization has done, Fred. They went and got the best defensive coordinator perhaps currently in the business, or one of the best, in Wade Phillips after his downfall in Dallas. They went heavy in the defense in the draft, and they went out and got a couple of notable free agents, Danielle Manning from Chicago, Jonathan Joseph from Cincinnati. And Fred, in the history of this franchise, that's one thing they've not done, has been very relevant in the free agent market.
Well, of course, the Saints saw you guys in Game 2 of the preseason, kind of went to school on that a little bit, and what we learned is that you do have a very good defense, currently ranked first in the NFL in total yards allowed and in passing yards allowed as well. Is that all Wade Phillips' creation?
It's a little bit of everything. It's about, most importantly, having a better secondary. Kareem Jackson was a miserable failure last year as a rookie cornerback. He doesn't have nearly as much pressure on him now that you've got Jonathan Joseph back there. You have a new 3-4 defensive scheme, and Mario Williams, who looked very sluggish in the preseason, especially against the Saints in that package, has been absolutely a terror so far. So you take a combination of things, and ultimately it was you just, Fred, couldn't have the same guys in the same position back, because last year's defense, as you know from watching some of the Texans games, one of the worst all time, especially in the secondary. Add D'Amico Ryans back after being injured last year for a little bit, and then hopefully the return of Brian Cushing as a guy that was really good his freshman year and not so good his second year. Add all those things together, and I think that's the reason why the stats are giving us some better details about the Texans.
All right, now let's talk about the offense a little bit. Matt Schaub manages a very good football game out there. Seems like he's really matured as a leader.
He has, and you know what? He understands his limitations. He's not going to throw the biggest deep ball, Fred. He does a very, very good job on a rollout. He has tremendous running backs, and I use the word running backs because Arian Foster has hardly played this year, but Derek Ward in the limited time was very good. And oh, by the way, Ben Tate, who was third on the depth chart the last 2 games, has over 100 yards in each of those 2 contests. He's got a plethora of wide receivers to throw to. And oh, by the way, there's a guy named Andre Johnson, who at this point has yet to be stopped in the National Football League. So you combine all that, and it's one of those situations where as long as he doesn't make the silly interception or try to force the issue, he's got so many targets. And again, ultimately, you're right. He's matured. He manages the game well. And that's the reason why the Texans offense, while last year was very good in the second half of games, lousy in the first half, has had a pretty good 4-quarter consistent run here in the first 2.
Yeah, let's dig into Ben Tate just a little bit more. You mentioned the 100-yard games. I was surprised to see he's one of only 11 guys in NFL history to ring up at least 100 in each of his first 2 games.
You know, it's amazing for the controversy, or I guess not controversy, but conversation piece here in Houston is this a part of the Texans system? Because think about it, Arian Foster comes on the scene last year and gets you 1,600 yards, or is it just the Texans have been very, very lucky? Remember, the Texans didn't know who Arian Foster was 2 years ago because they took Ben Tate in the 2nd round. If they knew how good Arian Foster was going to be, Ben Tate wouldn't have been the very first pick the Texans had in the draft, at least in round 2 from an offensive perspective. So he's been very, very good. An injury that cost him all last year. There's no signs of that. And he's kind of taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and been given the most of every opportunity he's been given so far.
Matt, give us the thing or things that the Texans are looking to improve upon in Game 3 of this regular season.
Well, we saw the rookie running back for the Dolphins run for over 100 yards in the game on Sunday. The 3-headed monster, frankly, that the Saints put offensively scares the bejesus out of me. I think that the Texans are going to have a big trouble with that. They've had run stoppage trouble all throughout the preseason, including that second preseason game against New Orleans. That's the biggest problem. And Jonathan Joseph missed some plays in the game this past weekend at Miami. Jason Allen, a former Dolphin, went in there and looked terrible in secondary. So Joseph stays healthy. I think we're okay. The Texans are fine. If that run defense can stop Sproles and friends, that'll be a good situation. But again, if there's been one negative for the Texans defense so far, it has been the fact that there have been some guys that have been able to run, and especially what we saw this past Sunday against Miami.
And final thing, with Peyton Manning down and out for who knows how long for the Indianapolis Colts, do the Texans feel as though they are the team to beat in the AFC South and that they may be able to get into the playoffs and do some heavy damage?
Fred, they may have to contract this franchise if they don't win the AFC South this year. I mean, To be in all seriousness, I was one of the few people in this town last year that said the Texans weren't good enough to make it, and they wanted me to ship me to Dallas or anywhere. Hell, they wanted to send me to New Orleans if they wanted to. This year, this is a 10-win football team at the very minimum. This conference, I should say, this division probably is the second worst in football behind the NFC West. There is no way, no how that anybody else not named the Houston Texans win this division, unless, again, Andre Johnson goes down for a lengthy period of time. Same for Matt Schaub. This is the best football team. I'm not considering a Super Bowl contender, but clearly the creme de la creme of the AFC South.
All right, Matt Thomas, Sports Talk Radio 790 in Houston, Texas. Great job breaking down the Texans for us. One bit of advice: if you come to the game Sunday, bring some earplugs. It's going to be loud.
Oh, I'm assuming that there's 50 or 100 Texan fans that'll find their way to get some tickets to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, maybe.
50 or 100, maybe.
Yeah, we'll let them in.
Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
Matt. Thank you.